Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is the eagerly awaited sequel to 2012 cult hit Hotline Miami. The game is developed by Dennaton Games and published by Devolver Digital. If you're not familiar with the Hotline Miami series, these games are best described as a top-down twitch shooter, and there are some stealth elements thrown in here and there. However, within the sequel, stealth kinda goes out the window for the most part. This game is a lot more gun heavy than the original Hotline Miami. They are also a little bit more complicated than that. I see the Hotline Miami games as more of a puzzle game, as each new level in Hotline Miami is a brand new puzzle to be solved. It's almost as if you're playing a very gruesome game of chess. Like every great sequel in a franchise, Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number takes everything that the original Hotline Miami did and improves upon it, with more variety in characters, gameplay styles, enemies, levels, and difficulty. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number uses the same pixel art style as the first Hotline Miami game, but also improves upon it, with higher detailed sprites, more detailed levels, and more fluid animations. If you're a fan of retro 8-bit games, this game is similar in style to classics like Super Smash TV. The art style in this game is extremely retro. Everything from the character designs to the soundtrack is a throwback to the 80s and 90s. Even the pause screen is a throwback to the good old days of VHS players. Even though this game's art style is pseudo 8-bit or 16-bit, whatever you might want to call it, don't let that fool you, as the game is extremely graphic and extremely gory. This may very well be the most gruesome game you will ever see in an 8-bit style. As the game does center around hyper acts of violence and gore, the objective in each level of Hotline Miami is to enter a building and pretty much kill everybody in that building and then leave. That's pretty much it. There's not really a whole lot more depth to the levels than that, for the most part. And this basic premise and repetition may sound boring to some, but however, the difficulty level in Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is very grueling. However, as I said earlier in the review, the game is also like one big puzzle, and once you figure out the ins and outs of how to solve this puzzle, the level will not seem as daunting as it did during the first few minutes of you dying every few seconds throughout that level. The action in Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is just as fast paced and intense as the original Hotline Miami. I would even go as far as to say even more intense, as this time around the game pretty much starts you off on the difficulty level of the last few levels of the original game. So if you are going to play this game, I would suggest maybe replaying the first game. Blow the dust off those Hotline Miami skills, as you are going to need it. Believe me, you don't want to walk into playing this game blind. Trust me, I know from experience with that one. Let's just say it took me maybe an hour and a half to get through the first few levels in this. It is pretty much impossible to talk about the Hotline Miami games without talking about their soundtrack, and Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is no slouch in that department. The 80s inspired techno electronica from the first game is still present within the game, and here the soundtrack may even surpass the original, as there is more variety in the tracks, and also within the soundtrack the game throws you some curveballs that you are not expecting that really do help set the mood and tone for while you're playing the game. The game takes the fast paced action that the Hotline Miami series is now known for and increases upon it in every single way. If the original Hotline Miami was a composite of the movie Drive and a David Lynch film, then Hotline Miami 2 throws in Christopher Nolan levels of twists and turns within the established story. The story to the game is vague at best, and I'm not going to really go into any spoiler territory here, because if you're a fan of the first game, you are going to enjoy this story immensely. And if you are not a fan of the first game, me telling you the ins and outs of the story here aren't really going to serve you any purpose. So I may as well just keep story points really vague. Basically, the story to this game is stretched across 3 different time zones and a variety of different characters. Where the original Hotline Miami followed the narrative of one character, Jacket, and to a later extent Helmet near the end of the game, Hotline Miami 2 follows the story of a multitude of characters. Everything ranging from a group of copycat killers trying to reenact the murders of the first game, to a detective with some seedier motives, to an actor playing the part of a murderer in an in-game film called Midnight Animal, and a more exaggerated portrayal of the murders from the original game, to a journalist trying to piece together every bit of information he can about these massed killings, to a mob boss's henchman, to an actual mob boss who is sparking a war between the Colombians and the Russians. You also get to play as some reoccurring characters who appeared in the original Hotline Miami game. There's also those weird little moments here and there where you're not exactly entirely sure who the hell you're playing as. Whereas the original Hotline Miami followed the cryptic story of Jacket, Hotline Miami 2's story is not as cryptic as the original story, however the storytelling style of the first game is still here, only the focus has changed from one character to a variety of characters. However, this constant jumping back and forth between characters can also be a bit of a detriment to the game, as you never really get to know any of these characters on the same way you got to know and care about Jacket, as you will find yourself jumping back and forth between so many people that certain characters do feel almost underdeveloped, as there are moments within the game that you really wish certain characters got a little bit more game time, as you will find certain story threads were a lot more interesting than others. For me, I am mainly referring to the detective storyline. I really do wish I would have seen a little bit more of that, to be honest. The biggest and most glaring difference in Hotline Miami 2 from the original, in a very odd and contradictory move, you no longer have the choice of picking what mask you want to play as the game pretty much forces you to play as whatever character that level and story commands. This issue is most prominent during your first playthrough of the game, whereas on repeat playthroughs you will have unlocked some more options for certain levels, be it masks, characters or gameplay styles. The mechanics within the 4 copycat killers also has a wide variety, as you have the 2 twins, Alex and Ash, who you control simultaneously, with one being armed with a chainsaw and the other one being armed with a pistol. Then you have characters like Corey, who plays more similar to your standard character like Jacket, however he also has a tactical role which can come in invaluable to you within certain tight spots within the game. Then there's the character with the Tony mask, who is a brawler who will only use his fists within the level and will refuse to pick up any weapon within that level. And then you have Mark, who dons a bear mask and dual wields 2 machine guns. Also, the reporter character introduces a refreshing gameplay style into the game, as this character is a pacifist. By default, the reporter will not actually kill anyone that he comes across, he will merely just incapacitate them, so no blow by the reporter is a death blow. Even while picking up a firearm, he will just disassemble it and throw it to the side. While playing as this character, you can never really kill anyone, unless you choose to actively make him kill people by spamming attack buttons when on top of people, but these actions will also take their toll on the character. The more violence that he is exposed to and commits, he will become more violent throughout the level. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number also introduces a nice variety in new level types and gameplay styles, as no longer is the game confined to apartment blocks. Now levels incorporate everything from standard apartment buildings, subway stations, police stations, a prison, hell, you even get to play around in a jungle for a while. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is the kind of game that sadists like me froth at the mouth for. As this game is not a simple pick up and play, this game is a pick up and die, as that's what's going to happen to you within the first 2 or 3 minutes of playing this game. And unlike most games, death is not a negative, as the longer you spend with the game, you will see death as a learning opportunity. A large part of the gameplay in Hotline Miami relies heavily on trial and error, as it is very unlikely that you will be able to get through this entire game without losing one life. Oh, trust me, I've learned that the hard way, as death is an essential part of completing this game, as it helps you survey the area, learn enemy positions and patrols, and also develop new techniques to take down new enemy types that you may not have encountered before, like these tanks. You're not going to know what to do to them the first time until they punch you in the face and knock you on the floor, or these ninja type chargers who basically have to be taken down with a melee weapon. They're basically like the tanks, but with melee, as opposed to the tanks being with guns, you know who? For fans of the original Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is a sequel we've all been waiting for. However, if you weren't a fan of the original Hotline Miami's difficulty level and the unforgiving nature of the game, then I would say maybe steer clear of Hotline Miami 2, as this game is pretty much built upon everything that was in the first game and increases upon it. So you're not going to find this game holding your hand at any point, and the gameplay itself kind of takes for granted that you are a fan of the first game. So there is no real holding your hand in this game, you are kind of thrown into the deep end. So if you weren't a fan of that style of gameplay and storytelling, then maybe steer clear of this one, because you are not going to enjoy yourself. Trust me, you're going to hate this game. You're going to hate it with a burning passion. However, for fans of the first game, you are going to love Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number. It's the sequel that we all wanted, and the introduction of new characters and new styles of gameplay changes the game up enough so it never feels like you are just playing a reskinned version of the original Hotline Miami. The controls are the same, but there's just a little bit more to do in this one. So after all that, I still don't have a scoring system, you see, so let's just give this game 4.5 pig masks out of 5. Yeah, there we go. That's a good enough one. That's as good as we're going to get. Okay, 4.5 out of 5 pig masks. Yeah, have to figure out a scoring system, don't I? Huh? Time to do some thinking. Hotline Miami 2 wrong number, 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 Hotline Miami 2 wrong number.